Hello, hello, sweet souls, and welcome back to another episode of It's All Happening. I am so excited to have a guest again today. Y'all have heard, it's only 2 weeks in a row. I'm being a little bit dramatic, but 2 weeks in a row, it's been just me and me. And my favorite part of this process is getting to have conversations with other people about their walks and their lives and the things that have brought them home to an internalized state of liberation. And so I'm so excited to bring onto the podcast today for the second time my business partner and the co-founder of Liberated Retreats, Living Liberated Retreats. If you're watching on video, you're seeing me holding up my cutie mug of our branding and this business that is just like holy moly being birthed through us with such a vengeance. I've been talking to everybody that I feel like for the first time in my life, after 5.5 years of entrepreneurship, I'm like, I understand what aligned action is for the first time. Like I'm curious how you feel about this too, that I just feel it's just God. Like there is just this other force, this other thing that is moving us to create what it is that we are birthing. And it is such a sweet thing to experience and such a sweet thing to experience alongside you. So without further ado, welcoming onto the podcast today, Jenn Maroney.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes. I'm so excited. I'm excited to be here again. And just to echo what you said, yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have been on an entrepreneurial journey since probably like 2020. And for the first time, it really does just feel like, I don't want to say effortless, but a little bit, right? Like it just feels like there's an ease. There's like a grounded, rooted conviction in my system of like, my steps are just being guided and everything is working out the way it's supposed to with our interactions, with the way things are unfolding with the women that are joining us. It just feels so aligned. And I just for years watching so many people talk about it, I thought it was this made up thing. And now I'm in it and I'm like, okay, this is what it's supposed to feel
I
like.
think I love that you named the I don't want to say effortless because Jen and I have had lengthy conversations about entrepreneurs that we bought into programs and spaces and things with that they're just like effortless action, effortless action. You just have to lean back and relax and take effortless action. And now to be in a space where it feels like that is actually happening, but to also want to be so careful about naming the journey that it takes within yourself of all the parts and pieces and messiness and chaos that has to be met in order to access that place. That it's not just something there's like, here's a list of to-dos, and then you get to be in alignment with the truth of what God has on your heart about what you're meant to birth into the world. Like we both made a mess getting here. And I want to lead with that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And today we are going to talk. We'll see what God wants to bring through about living liberated and about where we're headed and all the exciting stuff that we have going on. But it is so important to me and to Jen that y'all know like who we are through and through, where we came from, what we've gone through, like the life path it took us to get here. And like, dare I say, I even say this word a little bit with hesitancy because I feel like there's so much like dogma wrapped up into it, but like Jen's here to share her testimony today, like the truth of the pain and the process and the chaos of what it took for her to come home to God in a really embodied and sovereign way, and how much that speaks to the prayer that we have on our hearts for how we desire and God desires for us to help women also meet that space and place in themselves so that they can live in the embodied state of liberation that we are now speaking to when we talk about aligned action and just this thing that is being so viscerally moved through our experience together.
It sounds beautiful.
Are you ready?
I think I'm ready.
Yeah. Where do you want to begin?
Oh gosh. I guess I just first want to name that my path to living liberated or the state of liberation was definitely not the straight and arrow, right? It seemed that way from the outside looking in. I think if anyone viewed my life, I had it all together. I had the great career, I had the husband, I had the house. Um, but I was absolutely miserable inside. I was outsourcing all of my worth and my value to how many hours I was clocking at the gym, how many hours I was at work, how much money I was bringing in. I was seeking outside of myself every single validation, constantly on this hamster wheel of performing, of chasing. And it just left me so defeated because it was never satiated, right? And we know this now. And I know this now from the work that I've done, that I'm never going to find that satiation truly until I am at home with myself. And I didn't realize that at the time. And I felt very alone on that journey too. I want to name that because I think there's a lot of women that, we're going through the hustle and the grind every day, and we just feel like it's not safe to speak up and say, wow, I'm really unhappy, or I'm really overwhelmed, right? Because we're looking at all these other people, we're seeing famous people, and we're seeing all these other figures in our life, and they seem to have it all together. And I was that one too. So many people, as they've heard me share my story, are like, I would have had no idea.
Mm-hmm. And I think I just want to name that it's so interesting to say, like, I felt so alone because I felt very much the same in the space that I was in. But I think that that's so many women's story, right? Like, I felt so alone inside of the reality that I was waking up to this deep sense of like miserable inside of myself. Well, externally, I had done all the right things and I like painted the pretty picture and I was living in the kind of example of what we are shown is supposed to be the end all be all of happiness, which is the house, the husband, the career, the job, the gym, like all of these things that create a really pretty external picture. And yeah, just the I call it like the hungry ghost inside of us, that you could live your entire life on that hamster wheel of chasing and chasing and chasing. And I think that we see inside of our society, although so many people are living inside of a pretty picture, I think there are way more people than we even know to be true that are having that same experience that you're talking about having had.
Absolutely. 100%. And so I label this point in my life kind of like the meeting of the perfect storm. I was married at the time, and my husband was living in another state. He was in the military, so he was going to a school, so we were kind of living these separate lives, and just really knowing that I was not happy in that partnership. There was infidelity going on. We had lost a child, so there was just so much turmoil and angst and just a ton of sadness, and I didn't know how to turn to anyone and share that grief that I was struggling. And so I threw myself into work. I was working probably about 80 hours a week, and also threw myself into alcohol. So when I wasn't at work, I was sitting at home drinking myself to sleep every night. And just like you said, landing in that space of like deep misery. And I didn't know how to get out of it. And I felt so much shame around it because, like you said, society says this is the program, this is the recipe. You go to college, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you do the things. And I was like, I have these things. Why do I feel so like still like empty? And I didn't know how to cope with any of that. And so my life took a beautiful unraveling, I guess is the only way I can describe it. In the moment, I certainly didn't call it that. But at the time, I was a mental health therapist. So I was working on some big government contracts and things like that. And I took a really awful misstep in my career, which led me to facing a 39-month federal prison sentence. And that was not on my bingo card. I had never anticipated that. Someone who had never even had a speeding ticket. And it just goes to show like how deep out of alignment I was with my connection to my values, with my connection to God. I mean, God was not even in the equation at this point in time, if I'm even naming it, to be honest, I had this vision in my mind that God was a disciplinarian, that I had to have myself like all cleaned up and perfect. Um, and that he was judging me. It was this like person that was kind of over here judging me for every awful thing that I have done. So of course, in this moment when I'm going through this horrible situation, this unraveling, why would he want me?
Mm-hmm. Oof. That brings up for me just the way in which society has evolved to paint the picture of God as this masculine disciplinarian. And I don't know if we'll get all the way there today, but it's like I see now the picture that society has painted of God is this like really wounded masculine father. That it's like if I'm not perfect and I'm not polished and I'm not doing everything right, it's either like who am I to deserve his love, which is a huge piece of it, but then there's also the internal rebel that's like if you're judging me and you're shaming me for all of this stuff and you're not actually here to like help me through it, then like fuck you and I'm just gonna do this life without you, right? And it's like such a I hope that we get there in this conversation because it's such an incomplete picture of like who and what God is, but I also see it as this like beautiful initiation into a deepening with God that we get to move through inside of ourselves, of like recognizing that that's not who and what God is, but our projection of who and what God is.
Yes, absolutely. And this really was the turning point for me. And recognizing that what I was doing just was no longer working, and I had to make a change. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought my life was over. I will never forget the day that I had to go to my sentencing and they told me that I was sentenced to 39 months, and I dropped to the floor and I just started wailing, I want to die. I want to die. And I meant it from every fiber of my being. I did not believe that I was going to make it through the next 39 months of my life. There was no way. I was riddled with so much shame. I don't think I'll ever be able to release the memory of the look on my mother's face and my father's face on that day. And my dad's just holding me like, we're gonna get through this, we're gonna get through this. And I did not feel that at all. And I was really, really going through it. It was,
I just got a
yeah,
full like whoa as we're bringing in like the connection to God the Father and you naming that part of your story of like your actual father holding you and just being like, we're gonna get through this. And then like, I mean, I know this story, guys, so I have a little bit of insight into where we're going, but like, oof, just the foreshadowing and the like, he does not miss. He does not miss in the story that he writes so that you can come home to him.
right. I mean, and it's like, I will always tell people, like God gave me a timeout. I feel like as I reflect back, there were many micro moments, right? God doesn't scream at you. The voice is just almost like in a whisper, right? I was so dysregulated in my system. I was so focused on the hustle and the grind and the push and what's next. I wasn't even hearing. I was not connected to this body at all to be even witness to anything that was trying to come through. And I truly now, like as I reflect back, like he said, okay, you're not listening. Here's your timeout. Are you ready now? And what I thought was like the end was just the beginning. God just sat me down to say, like, I have to break you all the way down at this point to bring you back up to where I want you to be, right? Like to do the work that I have called you to do, because he knows, he's always known. Like I have, since I was a little girl, I want to help people. That's why I got into therapy and wanting to, like, I have always wanted to be that. And God has known that. And he saw me going off course. So he needed to sit me down, to strip me away of all of those identities that I was wearing, like a badge of honor, right? Hustler, grinder, like getting the hair done, getting the nails done, wearing the designer stuff, throwing money around. Like he had to strip me of all of that, put me in a position where I'm with a group of women and we're all wearing the same outfit, right? We can't do our hair, we don't have makeup. And show me, who are you without those things? Who are you without all of those titles, with all of your things? And I had no idea, Molly. I had no idea. I was about to find out. I was about to find out.
So what is that process like for you? Like, bring us through what, I mean, I'm sure that there were so many different moments and layers and things that you had to move through inside of that space, but how did this sentence and the timeout that you were given pave the path and lead the way to like what it is that you're doing today?
I have a couple of really powerful moments that I will always remember that got me on this journey. I would say the first one happened pretty early on in my time away. I was required to go to these like group counseling sessions, and we had to stand in front of the group of women, and we did this example called the Johari's window. And so it's just kind of examples like things that you know everyone knows about you, maybe secrets that people wouldn't know about you, things that you don't see about yourself. I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head. And I remember, and we weren't allowed to say anything. And I remember I went through my whole spiel and I'm sharing, and this older woman looked at me and she just said, "You are absolutely miserable inside." That was her thing that she was sharing with me that I was like unaware of. And I'm like, okay. And you're not allowed to say anything back. And I'm just like, thank you for your feedback. To which then, when my time was over, I like immediately beelined it to the bathroom. And, you know, you really can't cry in prison, but I went and like put myself in a little hole to try and cry. And this woman had such an impact on me. I don't even think she knows. She walked in with very much of like a mother's embrace and kind of picked me up off of the floor and hugged me and told me, you know, your story's not over here. This is just a chapter. God has something big planned for you. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to do like some of these other women here? And are you just going to bide your time playing the games and getting into drama and go out and do the same stuff that led you here, staying disconnected? Are you going to come back home? Are you going to remember that you're a child of God? Are you going to remember what you're here for? Ooh, it's making me. Are you going to remember what you're here for? And you're going to make this time work for you. And you're going to do the healing that you need to do to go out there and really make a difference.
Woo!
Yes.
I already felt that when you said she looked at you and said you're miserable inside, and I was like, oh, okay, hello God, hello mother
Right.
face of God talking to you
Right.
in the way
Yeah.
that God needed to get to you. Because let's make no mistake, guys, I need y'all to know, if you're going to be here in this community listening to this podcast, potentially joining us inside of the Living Liberated community, like God is not just a daddy, God is a mommy too. And like in that moment, Mother God came through and literally asked you if you were willing to remember.
Yes. Okay.
They don't fuck around.
Yes. So of course, then I'm starting to get curious. I'm seeing I've never done any kind of like yoga or breath work or anything like that. And there's this other woman and she says, "Hey, why don't you come take this class with me?" She noticed I was just kind of staying alone to myself a lot. And so this was my first invitation. I had never done yoga, but I did my first yoga class in a federal prison. And it changed my life. It changed my life, which is another reason why when anyone tries to come at me and tell me doing yoga is like demonic, I just have to shut them down so quick, because God met me on that yoga mat every day that I landed there. Okay.
Yep.
Using my breath bridged the gap. Like that was how I opened my dialogue with God. You will never tell me that moving my body in a way that is allowing me that communion with God is wrong. I won't hear it. I won't speak to it. So anyway,
Hang
that
on,
was
I want to
another
pause you there
huge.
and talk about that for a second. This podcast might be
Okay,
a little
absolutely.
bit long, y'all, but just a reflection on that. Like, and you know how I feel about this, but like this body that we are living in, the thing that's attached to you from like your neck down, it is the vessel that God literally gave you to experience him, her, it, life through. And as you're naming, like my nervous system was so jacked up, so dysregulated. I was in the hustle, I was in the grind, I was never connected to my body, I was outsourcing all my validation, right? We are living out, dissociated from the reality of the gift that God has given us, which is a vessel that is a direct line to talking to him, her, I don't care what you want to call it, it through, right? And your story just reverberates, and like, thank you for naming that. My own story as well is like, as somebody who, and y'all already know this, somebody who has suffered through any type of sexual trauma, but any trauma, period, like yoga, breath work, embodiment work brings you back to a body that you did not feel safe enough to be inside of, and therefore could not hear the voice of God from within. So like, that's a hill that we gonna die on, is that like all of these practices are just bringing you home to the safety inside of your body. And what healing is a clearing out of all of the constrictions and contractions inside of your nervous system that are keeping you in disconnection from being able to hear that voice and to experience the true unconditionally loving nature of like the union of God inside of your body.
Yes.
Sorry,
Yes.
and continue.
No. Preach it. No, I mean, and that's a beautiful segue, because I don't even know if maybe I've shared this part of my story with you, but the other big component for me of that reconnection, I joined the praise dance ministry while I was there. So there was just a group of 6 of us women, and every Sunday when they would hold church, we would do liturgical dance to different Christian songs. And it was the first time that I recall and can remember and had this deep remembrance that my body was a holy vessel.
Mm.
You know, I grew up, you know, living a bit of a wild life. I also am a survivor of a sexual trauma, and after that situation at such a young age, my body just didn't feel like it was my own. I didn't care. I didn't have boundaries around it, specifically in relationships with men, you know? It hadn't been respected. So what's the point in me even voicing, you know, a yes or a no here, because you're going to do what you want anyway.
Mm.
So it was just this deep, deep, detachment from everything here down. And when I decided to join the praise dance team, everyone wanted me to do the singing because my background is in singing. And when I went into it, I said, no, like this feels really important for me to build this like sacred connection with my body. And week after week, learning these dances and being able to see how the other women in the congregation were moved by seeing the movement of the body and how God was literally moving through us was such a powerful, powerful experience for me to remember, like, that I am holy, that I am sacred, and that my body is a temple. And so that just all of those different types of practices. So having deep conversations with people, learning how to connect into my body through my breath, as well as through my movements, really started me down this path of remembrance, of a coming home. And I have journals upon journals every day. I was journaling every day. I'm writing. I'm getting these like downloads from God. I feel so clear now, right? Because you've taken away my ability to work. You've taken away my access to like the news and all these things and the drama. And it's just me and him. It's just me and him. And I would get up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning before anyone got up, and I would move my body and I would read my Bible and I would journal and I would speak life over myself, right? I had to remind myself because prison is a place where you can get really, really down on yourself and think that your life is over. And so I had to just tell myself, like, this is a chapter. This isn't the whole story. You are meant to change lives. You're going to turn your mess into your message, and your purpose is going to come through here, and you're going to find your passion through all of this pain. And it's not for nothing. It's not for nothing. And so I'm journaling this, and I'm going to create communities where women can come together and not feel so alone, and they feel so safe. And it's just pouring out of me every single day. And, the how wasn't quite clear yet, but I knew it had such a deep conviction in my system. Like, I was so motivated coming home. I had this like laser focus. I wasn't getting involved in any of the drama, anything that was going on in this search situation. I was coming home and I was on a mission.
And
Yeah.
how long ago is that now?
I was sitting doing all of that journaling in 2018. So that was 7 years
7 years
ago.
ago. 7 years
Yeah.
ago. I just want to name that as well, because I don't want to say that like God doesn't move quick, right? God moves quick. God moves quick on what you need to do and who you need to become in order to, I'll use the word manifest, those things that God puts on your heart, right? Like those things that you were journaling on, like how important it is for you to create spaces and places for women to come home to themselves, and not knowing what that looks like. But it's like in that moment, God is giving you a purpose. It's coming through you, right? And I have had so many similar moments, and I'm sure so many women listening have also had similar moments. But then you go on the journey through your ego and the illusions of separation and all of the beliefs and all of the contractions and all of the things inside of your system that make you believe that you can't, that you won't, that you're not worthy enough. Like God has to literally prune you to become the woman who can hold a mission and a purpose that is that big, that is God guided. And so much of that is, it's like, yes, through prayer and through like these mystical experiences that you get to have with God. But something that's so important for Jen and I that we're going to include in this community is like the tangible down home human practices and education about your nervous system,
Mm.
about how to actually physically in this human body reality create that capacity so that you can move towards in a really regulated way the things that God has in store for you. And I just want to mirror, like there's so many, I love listening to your story because there's so many places that I'm like, damn, like when I was at the lowest of my low, when I was in a deep mental health crisis after the first wave of COVID, working as an ER nurse, also digging into bottles of wine every single night. Like yoga became the alternate path, right? It's like you can either get drunk every night for the rest of your life, or like let's go down here and see what's down here for you. And a couple months after that is when I felt called to do a yoga teacher training, which was my first retreat, which landed, and now that is 5 years ago, that was in 2020, landed in my heart in a journal for the first time. Like I want to live in retreat work for the rest of, like I want to do this for the rest of my life. And like beginning to get that vision of exactly what you're talking about, holding these spaces for women to heal and come home to themselves, and having no idea what that even really meant yet, but just the timing of like how long it actually takes for you to be patient and for you to cultivate this relationship with God and for you to build the amount of faith it actually takes to let these things like land, and how we're talking about like be birthed through you, not forced by you.
Mm. Yes. I wasn't ready. When I came home, I'd love to say that I remembered and kept sacred everything because I remember being like, I'm going to always have these slow mornings and this intentional time, and I'm not going to get caught up in the hustle and the grind. And I had big goals and dreams. Meanwhile, I feel like God's just like sitting back, like, okay, girl, whatever you say. And yeah, he had some pruning to do when I came home, because one thing I will say is I was incredibly dysregulated, right? Imagine spending, a couple years in a very interesting environment. You're dealing with a lot of different personalities all of the time, all day, every day. You're being, managed on when you can go to the bathroom, when you can go outside, when you can even take a shower, how long you can take a shower. I mean, I was just in an incredibly dysregulated state. And then add on to that coming home and, obviously still some of that guilt and shame is present that I haven't been able to completely navigate. Um, because of leaving my financial responsibilities behind, my family having to navigate those things, my best friend having to navigate those things. So I felt this, innate, I went into old patterns as soon as I came back, is what I'm basically trying to say. So immediately I come home, I'm like, all right, I got to get a job. So I had a job within 7 days of getting home and like started working within like 9 days, trying to get back into that space. Layer into that. So I came home, and probably a month after coming home, my biological father died without me being able to speak with him. So throw some grief in the mix of there, and unresolved grief. So I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess, and I had such good intentions coming home. And it was almost like, I don't love to say that God puts us through tests, but it almost was like okay, here we are again, and we talk about this a lot on retreats too, right? You're in this isolated space, everything's working, you've got it figured out. Well, when you're taken and you're put back in your environment where nothing has changed, all the people are the same, everything, the expectations are the same. Can you have that
Mm.
remembrance? Can you stay anchored in your truth?
Whoa.
Whew.
It's almost like
Yeah.
God sent you on your first retreat.
Yes, right? That one was a little less luxurious than the ones that
Not
we
exactly the same experience that we're trying to curate for people.
right. But absolutely, but that's a beautiful way to put it, right? I was taken out of my day-to-day environment, and then when brought back in, I didn't do so hot when I started, and I needed that time. So those visions that were created in 2018, they were going to need some pruning. I needed some more time in the wilderness. I needed time to learn more about, okay, what is going on with my body? Like, what am I feeling here in this moment? Why am I acting out of alignment in certain moments? Because that was a big piece for me too. Like, I can't believe I did that thing. You know what I mean? And having to really reconcile with those parts of myself and recognizing why they were alive and active in my system, having to sit with them, see what they needed.
Yeah.
So then bringing in, doing a lot more education around parts work. And again, how can I deal with these sensations when they arise in my body, when I find myself very unconsciously going into that hustle and grind mode? How can I remind myself to come back? And so through all of that, again, leaning more into somatic work, because I had spent 13 years in mental health. Like, I have an education behind this. I
Right.
know
Like
I'm
bring
doing these things.
bring
Like,
that back around. Like you were a therapist.
yeah,
And like
I
there's
know. I forget that sometimes. It was like
like
so
you were in
long
the work,
ago.
in the world, helping other people do the thing. And like I just think that's such a beautiful testimony to the power of somatic work, and then also the power of, this is the first time this is coming through in this way, but like faith-based somatic work, right? Because like all of this work is so beautiful, but if you're still doing it, and like probably both of our stories, maybe not, I don't want to put words into your story, but like in my story, the somatic work started with like, oh, I've unlocked this thing inside of myself and I can be the one to heal me. And it's like that can only also take you so far until you have to be like,
Mhm.
oh, like I need faith and these tools and strategies that God has gifted me through this body, like to be in union with Him, to actually come home to that wholeness that we can also endlessly seek inside of somatic work, which I think is like another thing to like touch upon, is like Jenn and I are really adamant about educating women about not getting stuck on the healing hamster wheel, and that like there is a season where you need to learn and you need to be in it and you need to be devoting yourself to it and you need to be going to the depths and finding all these parts and pieces, and like creating a foundation. And then there's also a season when you have to be like, all right, now how do I live in knowing all these things about me without feeling like I have to completely get rid of them in order to be worthy of living a life in alignment with God.
Mm, yes.
Whew.
So good. I love that so much. Yeah, that gave me chills. Yeah, it's the little tangible tools. It's not again making the healing work another like addictive thing, you know?
Of like, if I heal
And I
hard
think I
enough.
definitely fell like in that. I think I for sure, I mean we all go
Oh,
through that.
same. Because you get so high that you're like, I don't
Yeah.
need drugs and alcohol anymore. I have breath and body work.
Right? Exactly, exactly. And it does feel so good and you just go to these places and but it can become like another like dopamine chasing thing. Like I have to be in this space to explore and find these things. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love that both of us in our work is like, okay, no, like can we actually make this a more human thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like what if it's just as simple as when I get in my car in the morning before I drive off, I put my hand to my heart and I take 3 nice big breaths into my
Mm.
body. Like that is
Yeah.
embodiment. You know, that's taking time to like reconnect with the body and just tune in.
Yeah.
What's here?
And
How
when,
you feeling today? Like, hi.
hi, body, you exist.
Hi, body.
When you named the piece about coming home, and I wouldn't even completely validate and agree with you in saying that, like, I didn't get it right at first. Like, it took me some time to like get it right. But that there's a different, so there's like activation, right? There's the learning of all of this information and the excitement that comes around that, like being in the study of breath and somatics and being in those practices and being in communion and prayer with God and like feeling that again for the first time and doing all the journaling and all of the things. And it's like that's like such a beautiful activation of remembrance of what's possible. And then that light of God that's coming through you in these experiences, it's like it takes time to, it literally has to like filter out the parts and pieces inside of your body that are in resistance to fully receiving that love, right? So it's not even like I didn't do it right away, because I don't think that that's God's journey for any of us. It's like this slow integration process from
Yeah.
activation and knowing and like, oh my God, this is so cool and I'm so passionate about this, to like, in order to actually serve it, you have to become it first. You can't, it's not just like you can go to school and study it the way we did in college, like with therapy for you or nursing for me. You can study and get all of the knowledge about this thing and then be it. You have to actually like live it in order to offer it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And that was the journey that I had to go on. And shoot, I'm still going on that journey if I'm being honest.
It
And I
never
know we've had these
ends.
conversations, you know, like I mean we all are. Um yeah, like I still get super uncomfortable sometimes of like trying to like I get caught up in the stories of it, right? Like, oh, my way of embodying this looks different than theirs, and then the stories arise like what's wrong, like I have to, you know, and it becomes performative, and it's just again it's just an invitation for me that there's still something there like, oh, okay, interesting, something that God wants me to just look at maybe a little bit more or like bring my awareness to. And my journey now is just not getting so wrapped up in that or like beating myself up about it and just kind of welcoming it in of like it's like an opportunity and invitation.
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, I love therapy and I love mindset work. And I have found that the somatic work, the embodiment practices for me, breath work has been my major tool that has helped me like bridge that gap from mind to body.
Mm.
You know, because we can tell ourselves something all day. Like you can tell me why you're a people pleaser or why you're overachieving or, you know, why you're working all the time. We know all of those things. And yet we still and still and why? Because we haven't included the body. Like our body is so deeply ingrained with these stories at a cellular level that until we kind of drop from our brain into our body, into our heart space of like, and getting real curious of what's here, we're putting band-aids on bullet wounds.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's the difference that we have talked about wanting to make inside of our spaces and community, that Jen and I have both named in the beginning of our healing processes, or I'll say like entrepreneurial journeys, we were getting really activated by a lot of information and being guided to a lot of journal prompting of like, look at your stories, look at your childhood, look at your this, look at your that. And that like that can only take you so far, because we both have named that we got to the place where I was like, I see it. I see all my shit. I see it all day, every day. I can't unsee it. Now I'm just seeing it everywhere I fucking go, and I can't make it stop. So
Now
how?
what?
Now what? How? How? What do
Yeah.
I do with this
What's
now
the
that I've dug it all
how?
up to the surface?
Yeah, I mean, and I thought we've talked about that being such a huge component about creating these spaces, these retreat space, and opportunities of community. It's like really wanting people to have that tangible how that's missing. I mean, and I'm not here to knock any other people, but there are a lot of spaces that will tell you, like, if you just think that you'll make $1 million, when you wake up tomorrow you'll have 1 million in your bank. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
that's not how this
Yeah.
works, and they're just not, there's the missing component, and they're not really giving you that clear how.
Yeah.
And that has just been at the top of our like mission with this work, is making sure that the women who come into our circles, they're feeling really supported in the understanding of the how.
Yeah. And the importance of like, okay, the how, the why, right? And like, I want to go
Yeah.
there for a minute after you just named the piece that we've talked about a lot. The how, the why, and like, can't get around it, the God, right? Like, because the how being learning your nervous system, learning this instrument that is your body, learning and experiencing and remembering the reality that there are pockets of pain that are inside of your system that are actually keeping you in a state of disconnection and keeping you spiraling in habits and patterns and things that you know aren't good for you anymore, but that like you actually don't have control over, really, because it's so deep in your unconscious, until you have safe spaces to process through it, to breathe through it, to allow spaciousness to make way for something new to be imprinted into your system. And like it's a lifelong journey, right? Another thing Jen and I say all the time to everybody who comes into our spaces, like, we're right here with you. Like, we've done a lot of this and we've expanded our capacity, but we've come home to the reality that so long as we are here in this body, we're going to remain human. And that like the journey is endless, but there's also a place of peace that you can come to inside of the journey, where you're like so surrendered and open to the continuous transformation that gets to take place inside of your walk with God. Tangent. But then the why, right? That it reminds me that in the beginning of both of our entrepreneurial journeys, we got into the online space in like, there was a boom of, I say, the like $1 million manifestation babes, right? And when I talk about embodiment and integrity and authenticity and walking the talk that you are preaching before you step into the role of teacher, is so important, because if not, you can do so much damage. I feel like we entered into an era where so many people were so activated by information, by manifestation, and what it can do for me and what I can get from it and who I can become. And it just fed the ego of like, oh my God, if I do this and I heal hard enough, then I'll be able to make enough money, and then I'll finally be able to feel worthy. Or I'll be able to have all these clients and I'll be able to help all these people, and then I'll finally feel worthy. I'll be able to, you
Hmm.
name it. And it comes back to, and I'll finally be able to feel okay inside of myself, which is like the dark side of what a lot of people like speak to, but don't actually talk about inside of the like new age manifestation space, right? Because it's just feeding that same thing that's seeking for anything to be the thing that will fill the hole that only God can fill,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And
No more of it was like so much of these if then statements. Or when this happens, then I will. Or
mhm,
if this happens, then I will, and it's just constantly, again, it was that
yeah.
outsourcing our worthiness, outsourcing to our productivity, to what we were creating, to how many clients wanted to work with us. Yeah,
And it's not to
totally.
like shame anybody who's in that space. Again, we are human. I still have moments where I get really caught in the like, but how many and when and how? And the only thing
Hmm.
that's so beautiful about, I feel like, where we're both out now is this like, okay, I see that. That's cute. I see that happening. I'm being such a human right now. I can take a deep breath and I can say a prayer and I can find that connection inside of my system, and I can hear the voice of God saying, like, I've got you. You don't have to push or fix or force. Like, just take a step or take a
Mhm.
pause, take a breath. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to do it all alone. And I think that's the important piece, that it was like when we stepped into this work in the online space, the like, while it was so, I think, well intentioned by so many people, not enough people had walked the path long enough to actually come home to the truth of the why, which is God.
Mm. Yes. Yeah. I love that so
And
much.
that once you make your way back to that space, the fear of the how and the what and how much, like, it's not something that you have to force yourself to fix. It's something that, and I'm curious how you feel about this, sort of just like dissolves away. That something I used to be really embarrassed a couple of years ago to name inside of my business was like, my life hasn't really changed that much. Like I'm not rolling in it. I'm not living some crazy luxurious life. I don't have more materially than I did when I started, but I have peace and I have surrender. And I
Mhm.
have this like, oh my God, gratitude for how beautiful my life and my journey has been. And this reconnection and remembrance of who and what I am inside of God. And it's like, that's the thing that we didn't know we were chasing when we got started.
Yeah, that's so wild. I love that. And yeah, I agree with you. I used to think that freedom was, being able to buy whatever I wanted and travel and do all the things. And that has shifted so much since actually literally losing my physical freedom, right? I literally lost all of that. Um, and now realizing that the true freedom is like me becoming and stepping into who God created me to be.
Mm,
That's the real liberation. That's the real freedom. And when I sit around and I reflect of, like sitting here on a Friday afternoon, getting to share my story with you, like I'm so rich, right? I have a full fridge of food that I get to eat when we're done this. Rich.
mhm.
I have solid quality friendships. I've met incredible human beings. Rich. Have an amazing prayer life. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just, that there's such a deeper and more simplified definition of freedom to me now,
Yeah.
for
It
sure.
brings me to that piece of scripture that says, like, you will know them by their fruits. Like, you know, people who are in deep, embodied, authentic, integral relationship, experiential relationship with God by the fruits of their life. And the fruits are not material, right? I don't know, relate it back to like the story of Jesus, like not material. It's in the fruits of what your life gets to feel like, in that wholeness that cannot be taken from you once you remember the truth inside of your own experience. And this conversation is just helping me so much. Like those of you who listened to the previous episode, it was so much about just this like confusion and sort of soup that I've been swimming in around I was getting a little stuck in a band of consciousness around the like rightness and wrongness and religiousness of like what it is all meant to be, right? And it was just to touch into a deeper part in my own psyche that has this fear that I could be wrong somehow or bad, and that could damn me to eternal hell. And yeah, just the gratitude for the way in which God is always coming through, like even in these moments. It's like this gets to be a gift from God to whoever gets to receive it for whatever word it is that they need to hear in this moment. And simultaneously, like I'm recognizing the reflection of how much this conversation, our connection, is a word for me in what I need to hear in my own walk with God, which like we'll reiterate again, it's never ending. It gets to get really magical and beautiful and expansive, and it's like, oh my God, it's like a love you literally never knew you could experience, that you get to come home to again and again and again and again, because we're humans and we fall asleep and we get stuck in distortion and confusion and separation and all of those things. But like every time you get to come home to a space of clarity, which for me sometimes is like multiple times a day, I'm like, Thank you.
Facts.
Thank you. It's yeah. I'm at a I'm at a loss for words. Not something that usually
It's
happens to
okay.
me.
No, I love it. I love it. I just think that, just kind of bringing it all home is just that like liberation is like, it's not about us like getting somewhere. And we were kind of talking about that, right? It's more of this remembrance.
Hmm.
It's the constant remembering of like who you always were. And I'd say that a lot of times when I'm guiding people on breathwork, like, can you remember who you were before the world, all the noise got a hold of you? God is love. So, how can you show up unapologetically and fully embodied in that
Mm.
every day?
Hmm.
That's liberation. That's freedom.
Yeah. Oof. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you. Thank you, God, for the ways in which you have weaved our stories together to create what we have coming. I mean, right now we are this episode won't come out for a couple weeks from this conversation, but we are in the midst of creating an incredible online community to go hand in hand with these in-person experiences that we are building out. That is just going to be such an incredible safe. It started out as an idea that we wanted to, because integration and the process of integration that we know is so much longer than just a retreat or just a couple weeks after a retreat. Like we wanted to give the girls we had already walked through a retreat space an opportunity, if they wanted to remain in community and connection, and to give them spaces for practices and for continued connection and calls and all of the things. And we're just so excited to see what it grows into. We're building out an online platform that is full of that is full of things for you to self-study through, sisterhood for you to connect into, calls for you to come onto. I mean, we are going to do everything from breathwork and embodiment practices to um, group coaching calls. We're even talking about now, this morning, we were just naming like weaving prayer calls onto that, and like deconstructing what it means to like be in prayer and how to be in relationship and communication with God, and kind of breaking down any of the walls or things about what that even has to look like what anybody said that it has to look like. So we're super excited about that. By the time this episode is out, I think like it'll be out and open to the public, which is so
Yeah.
crazy, which means the link for it is down, like you're listening to this in real time. The link for it is down below if you want to come and join us inside of that space. We're going to be doing like 2 to 3 community calls a month. It is going to be a place that like grows as we grow, and that we give into it as we receive from those who are in it what it is that they need from us. We are by no means
Yes.
saying that we have this all perfectly figured out, but like God is moving through.
God is putting in the work, and it is for sure a labor of love. And I'm so excited just to see how it all unfolds,
Yeah.
and just to have that be a home, a space for women to land,
Yeah. Women to
to be
land.
seen, to be heard, to just really explore. I'm excited.
Yeah. And then simultaneously alongside that, we are full on launch mode for our next retreat, which is in Costa Rica, March 23rd to the 29th of 2026 in
Yeah.
Ujita. I will have the link for that down below as well. Click on that landing page, y'all. Your girl has recognized some like talent she didn't know she had inside of this business that is being birthed. Like, I am having so much fun creating landing pages and being creative in that way. And like, the house that we have come across that God guided into our lives, like this experience is going to be so incredible, and we are so excited. We are already starting to welcome a few women in. We have enough, I think, for it's 10 spaces inside.
Mhm.
Yeah, click that link, reach out, book a call, ask your questions, and keep your hearts open and eyes peeled, because living liberated is just getting started, and we are so excited to just see the women that we get to touch and get into sisterhood with and form these lifelong relationships with, as we all evolve and grow and connect and deepen into the most important relationship that there is for each of us, which is between us and God.
Yes. Mm,
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your
thank
testimony.
you.
Thank you for speaking to your story and utilizing that time period in your life. Like, I know I said this to you before we get started, but it is the ripple effect that that experience in your life has already created and has been reflected back to you, and how it has changed women's lives, is just incredible. And the unshackling of the shame from the things that we have gone through when we were living in separation, when we didn't know, when there was all of this pain and all of this wounding that we literally couldn't see and didn't know what to do with. Like, it's just going to help so many women be able to do the same, to put down the shame around the things that they have walked through, so that they can forgive themselves, so that they can know that they are already forgiven, and so that they can come home to that wholeness that you exude inside of yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me the space. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening. And if you loved this episode, as always, please, please, please leave a comment, a rating, a review, DM me. Like, let me know, how is this hitting you? What reflections, revelations, anything that came up for you. My biggest dream, prayer, why is literally community and connection and conversation around these things. So never hesitate to reach out. And if you can, leave us a rating, leave us a review, share this episode with one of your friends who might need to hear something out of it, because it is not without you that this platform, this show, gets to continue to grow. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next one.